Hello YouTube, hiya. Welcome to my thoughts and opinions on the movie Halloween. Yeah. I have the 25th anniversary edition Halloween DVD. It's all I have. Don't have any other in the franchise. I want to get H2O because I love H2O. I remember it being on the billboards outside the cinemas before I recently got into movies of the last 5 years. I remember H2O and Alien Resurrection being on billboards outside the cinema. Otherwise, I stopped watching movies around 1985, 1986, when I would have been 13, 14, 15 years old, before my schoolwork got too hard and my exams had to knuckle down for my exams and concentrate on a career. And as I say, it's only the last 5 years, max, 4 or 5 years. All the Harry Potter movies passed me right on by. I think the earliest movie I saw was Deathly Hallows Part 1 on its release of me getting back into movies. Prior to that, I've just spent 25 years prior to the last 4 years working, family, etc., etc. Probably what most people at my age in their early 40s would have been doing. Halloween, the movie Halloween. My parents were divorced when I was about 5 years old, and the only access to movies I ever had was at the weekends when I'd visit my father. He'd have access to his kids, myself, my younger brother and my elder brother. 3 of us used to spend our weekends with my father, away from my mum. And my father used to sit us in front of the television of the weekends. We used to go to the video store, we'd hide the VHSs. We'd always get at least 2 between 3 of us, his sons. And then he'd sit us in front of the television. He'd be happy then, content to know that we were sat in front of the television while he was out gallivanting with his girlfriends, getting pissed all weekend, right? That's probably the same story all people who are now in their early 40s experienced if their parents separated. That kind of thing. You used to love going to visit your father the weekends, and it was so terribly unfair on your mother, looking back in hindsight, because my mother must have hated us returning with like gloomy faces, over this Sunday evening. But get back to it, I digress. It was only through my father that I ever used to watch movies, and same with my elder brother and my younger brother. At said weekends, when we used to hire them from the video shop, VHS, okay, before anything digital, i.e. on disc, came about, even before Laserdisc. It was the only access we ever had. We were the first generation of people who used to be able to sit in front of the television and watch movies repeatedly. I come from that generation. My parents are from the generation of moviegoers to my generation, in respect to the fact that, okay, they were moviegoers, they were people who enjoy movies and went to see movies, but they didn't have the access to repeat view them at home. I remember as a very young child, it was only the very rich kids amongst us in our class who could afford to purchase movies, and again on VHS, and they were retailing at £60, £70 UK pounds, and just for a VHS copy of a movie. This is the rough outline to my generation, what we were exposed to. Hang on, let me close the door, the cat's going to use the tray and you won't be able to hear my voice. Hang on. Back. Okay. I I was humming and hawing about doing this video. I didn't know whether to do or not, but I'm swayed more to doing it because I want to, because with Halloween's new box set coming out, and I'm not just doing this because of that. I'm actually shocked that I don't own Halloween on Blu-ray, because it was probably the most enjoyed movie of my entire movie watching life, career, if you will, prior to the last 3 or 4 years when I've just got back into watching movies, yeah? Hope you're with me so far. I get back now to when I was a wee nipper visiting my father with my brothers at the weekend. We used to do that from probably 1978 right through to about 1985. The three of us. So I had 5, 6, a good 7 years worth of watching all that schlock, right? I was in the garden before, right, and I thought of that word came to mind, because I was like going through my mind how I would do this, outline this immo of mine, for this vlog, without having to write things down. It's like the word schlock came to mind, because that's all they were. People my age now, we were exposed to, in that initial generation of movie hiring people, we were exposed to all that schlock which is thrown out on VHS, because basically it was to make money, wasn't it? Specifically to make movies, to be thrown out there for the higher market, to make them the money. Yeah, the people who made the movies, the money. It was like a beat generation for the movie generation, for the VHS industry, get me? So all that schlock came about. Me and my 2 brothers, my father was into all this himself, throwing us in front of the television. I know he was going out getting pissed, but on the Sunday morning when he'd be cooking us all breakfast and he'd be recovering, he'd put them on. And he'd put the movies on himself and watch them himself. Do you know what I mean? So it's like everyone of that time, from 1978 right through to 85, 86, it's what we were all addicted to, I guess. It's what we were all used to, accustomed to, and it's what we were all exposed to at the end of the day. The movie Halloween was one of those movies, and I think this is why it still endears today. Because amongst all that schlock, amongst all that generation of movies which were made specifically for the high market, it was probably, in my memory anyway, right, it's probably amongst all that crap which was thrown out there, it's probably, as independent and low budget as this movie is, and as flawed as it is, because now as an adult you can look back and you can see the leaves thrown on the floor. Yeah, and you can see the palm trees. Get me? Get me? As independent as it is now, in hindsight, to watch. As a child, for my generation, watching this, I didn't notice all that. I was endeared to its individuality, to its standoutishness, as it endeared above all that schlock. And the reason why it did was because it had, I think, it had a sophisticated element to it. It was filmed in such a way. Carpenter must have thought, amongst all the schlock, how am I to make a movie which will stand out, which will endear, which will look different. He had made movies before this, so he must have known in his back of his mind, what do I do next? How would I go about it? How would I denote? How would I conjure a movie which was going to stand out? And that, I think, he achieved it with this movie, and I think all the praise Carpenter gets for making this movie is totally justified, because it still can be watched today. Okay, the shock factor now, no matter what age you watch it, won't resonate as much, because it has influenced many movies since its birth. The reason why this stood out and endeared so much is because of the manner in which it was made, I think. It was made in such a way that it had a sophisticated edge to it, the way it was filmed, and which movies now have all ripped off. It had the twist element to its finale, which amongst that generation of people who were just used to hiring out schlock over a period of 5 and 6 via our parents, get me? We were not exposed to. Maybe there were maybe amongst all that schlock there were elements in and amongst them which had which had surprising elements to them. But I certainly don't remember any other movie standing out as much as this did to me as a 13, 14-year-old child. I think what made this stand out so much above all that schlock and amongst all that schlock was because the way it was filmed. Carpenter left the surprise of this movie, the twist, if you will, which we call now a twist, to the very end. Whereas probably amongst all of the movies I ever sat in front of as a kid may have had their own little surprises held. This, I think, Carpenter went out of his way, I think, to actually film in such a way to make it productive. And I think this is why, as I said a minute ago, as independent as it does look, I've just watched it now and it does feel terribly inexpensive watching it now. As sophisticated as it was filmed, with the wide panning shots, etc., it still does have that inexpensive feel to it, but it's because I think it has that panning manner to it that it can still be watched today. But the elements of the surprise and the twist to the end, which this movie had, which movies now have ripped off, they're not memorable like the twist and the surprise which this held in its finale, because it was the first, I think, certainly the one I only remember as a child having in its makeup, in its structure, to make you, right. I remember watching this, right, with my father. It was, as I was saying a minute ago, I used to sit with my brothers at my father's house. I remember actually watching this, and I was on my own. It must have been a time when my two brothers couldn't make it, and I must have been 13, 14. The three of us, we must have been coming to the end of our weekend visits with our father, as we were getting older. Yeah, we were all heading towards the end of our school life, so we were kind of having to knuckle down with our schoolwork, yeah. And I remember specifically my father and I watched this together, and as I said just a second ago, my brothers weren't with us, they must have been doing something else, yeah. It was one of the last movies I ever watched around the time it was its production. It was about 84, 85, 86, my father hired this out, and I remember me and my father watching this, because I remember specifically after it was made, my father mentioning Halloween 2, its sequel, and him saying it's just not the same as this. It's just not, it didn't say worse or different, he said it was just not the same, and it was in regards to the twist end, the surprise end. I remember sitting there, and I can still remember it now, distinctly, the memory is still there, in full colour. I can remember as a child, I must have been about 14, 15, no older than 15, 14, I must have been no older than 14, must have been no older than 14, so we're talking 1984, 1985. I remember specifically, as if it were yesterday, I was sat here, my father was sat over there, and the television was there. Third cameras now, just there, yeah. And I remember me and my father watching this. My father must have distracted me when the sex scenes came up, because I certainly don't remember I certainly don't have any memory of the sex scenes in it, and the swearing and the smoking of cannabis. I wouldn't have known what cannabis was. I didn't know the girls are smoking the spliffs in the car. No. And I remember specifically going on this journey with my father, My father must have tactfully distracted me when they were in bed together. PJ Soles' character was in bed with that dude, because it's explicitly so, and it goes on for a few minutes. I've just been watching this, and I certainly have no memory of that. My father must have distracted me, because I was definitely underage watching this, definitely by at least 4 years. And I remember coming to the end of the movie, watching it with my father, and it was daylight as well. I don't remember it being dark. It must have been one of the mornings. It must have been after the evening where we've hired the video. And I just remember being like that. But he's not dead. Because he wasn't there on the ground when the camera looked over the balcony. You automatically thought, he wasn't dead. I only thought, but he's not dead. That was, to me, I had not seen anything like that at all in my movie-going schlock era of hiring VHS out over that 6-7 year period with my brothers. I had not seen. That was completely fresh to me. It was completely new, and I remember that moment. And I remember my father not saying anything. He didn't say anything. He just didn't say a word. And I was like, I just remember thinking, well, that's not right. It's not my logic was like, that's not right. I remember thinking, how could that be? I was trying to fathom how it could be. And I think that's what endears this movie now. Okay, it doesn't really hold up because it does have that inexpensive independent feel, because now all movies are made fully CGI'd, and I'm just about to watch Rise of the Planet of the Apes here, the Franco movie from last summer or the summer before. Is it called Rise of the Planet of the Apes? Yeah, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. There's a digital snippet that came with it. I'm about to review that in a minute. I'm about to watch that. All movies are made like that now. Avatar, post-Avatar, they're all like that now, CGI. But Halloween, I think, so endearing, and it touches the heart of many, probably, and for a reason. Because it did stand out from all that crowd. And one does have to hold it within its context. Kids of same age as what I was when I watched it, 13, 14, 15. Even if they saw it now, you could say, to have the impact as it did on me, get a kid of the same age, 13, 14, to watch it. No, it's a movie of its generation, certainly Halloween. Movie certainly of its generation. To be revered, I think. Not to be criticised. I look forward to the deluxe Halloween pack. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I'd be curious to see how that looks. Okay, over and out.